So welcome everybody to this workshop organised and delivered by Hub Cymru Africa and funded and supported by the Waterloo Foundation, which is looking at how to use digital tools for education and learning. I'm going to go through some ground rules and the agenda and a few of those things to start with, so please just bear with me. Some of this will be quite familiar. The session is going to be recorded. That's so that we can upload it to YouTube later, so that people who weren't able to join us can still get involved and find out what's going on. If you don't want to appear in the video, then please do just turn your camera off, and maybe you can put a pseudonym in the box. You don't have to have your real name in the box if you don't want to. If you don't want anybody to know that you're here. Please do participate in monitoring and evaluation to help us improve and strengthen our work. We do have a poll. We will be planning to launch a poll at the beginning of the workshop, and then we'll do one around the end of the workshop, so we get a little bit of a sense if people have found the workshop useful. We really do need you to fill that in so we know if we are doing a good job or not. We would encourage everybody to actively participate. Be lovely to hear from you, hear your thoughts and questions, but you don't have to. If you just want to have this on while you're cooking dinner or you're driving somewhere, then that's completely fine as well. If you do have questions, then please do raise your hand, and you can do that using the box at the bottom, or you can add your questions to the chat box and we will come to them. We've got a fair bit of time at the end of the session, which we'll be coming back to any questions that anybody's raised that haven't been dealt with through the session. In case there's some background noise going on, if there are, barking dogs or children or tractors happening, as is happening behind me, then please do make sure that you're muted unless you're actively speaking. This workshop is a safe space for minoritized people. No form of abuse will be tolerated. We do encourage challenging and constructive conversation, but people's lived experiences are not up for debate. If you have any concerns and you'd like to make a safeguarding complaint, if something has happened during this meeting, then after the event, then please do visit the Welsh Centre for International Affairs website. That's wcia.org.uk, and search for the whistleblowing policy. So a little bit of an agenda of what we're up to this evening. Now, I am aware that unfortunately somebody scheduled a football game at 7:30, which a number of members of the community are interested in. So we tried to rejig the agenda a little bit to make sure that we've got the case studies, which I think are the most interesting part of the workshop for most people. We've got them over by 7. So I'll be doing a kind of quick overview of some of the information available, some of the tools that are available to you. Then we'll be going straight to case studies from Dolen, Cymru and from Niokolo Network. That's about 5 to 7. We will have a little bit of a wrap up. And if people do intend to run away to watch the football or to do anything else, then they'll be able to kind of give us any final thoughts and maybe do the final poll then. I'm not very interested in football, so I will be hanging around, and we will talk a little bit about digital tools and inequality, about some of the risks that can come from using digital tools in education, and we'll have time to discuss those issues and any other questions and issues that anybody's raised. And we will definitely be finished by 7:30, maybe a little bit earlier. We will see. So the aims of the workshop are that participants are aware of the sorts of digital tools that are available to support education and learning, that you know where to find more information and support, that you understand how the use of digital tools can reinforce or challenge inequalities, and so that people are inspired by real life examples and case studies to use digital tools. And what we've seen from the previous workshops is that the case studies and real life examples are the things that people value the most and seem to get the most from. So rather than a lot of me yakking on, we're going to go more to talking to people who've got real life experiences. To get the most from the workshop today, it would be great if people could introduce themselves in the chat box, just to say a little bit about who you are, what organisation you're with, and also, if you want to, tell us about what you want to get out of the event Is there anything that you're particularly interested in learning about or finding out more information? I'll be popping some things in the chat box to share links and information, and I'd encourage you to do the same. There is far more expertise and knowledge and the participants of this workshop than there is in my head. So the sorts of things that people are bringing here are most important, and we will compile those links and extra information and we'll circulate to people later. So I see somebody's already putting something in chat box, which is great. And I think we should probably at this stage launch the beginning poll. So I will do that. Oh, have you already done that, Emma?
I did it.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Brilliant. Well done. Cool. So that's there and happening then. So yeah, if wonderful. I can see people are already popping in some information about themselves into the chat box. Thank you, Heather. Wonderful.
Julian, sorry, when you say rate your confidence in this topic, what can you clarify what topic
I'd say using digital tools for education and learning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. Wonderful. So am I in the right place? Yes, I am. Fab. I will continue with a bit of this, which is really just to give you some background and information to some of the tools that are available and to some of the support that's available from Hub Cymru Africa. So a couple of years ago, we did a lot of work getting together a full toolkit of digital tools that are available, that are used or could be used by the Wales Africa community. So that's organisations that are based in Wales, plus their partners in Africa. I will pop the URL, how to get to this page, into the chat in a bit. But essentially, this is a page on our website, which looks at all of the sorts of digital tools that are available and that the community is using. Now, there is a particular section there, which is about delivering training and education. But that on our website particularly looks at things like online learning platforms. And what I found over the course of the last couple of years in working with people who are doing education projects, then actually it's not just bespoke educational tools that are useful or interesting when it comes to providing education. So if you look at the array of things that we've got there, we've got tools that are available which will help you to collaborate and meet. So things that will enable you to organize meetings, do project management, get together in groups and teams. Specifics on things like delivering training and education. So that's largely online learning platforms, which I think are good if you're a larger organization that's particularly devoted to training. There's particular information on how to log and manage information, share photos, videos, and large files, all things which, again, are quite useful in that educational context. There's tools available to help you communicate externally, to engage with stakeholders, and to learn about some of the important issues in digital development. Also, we've got some information there which enables you to get access to technical advice and support. And the other thing, if you're delivering education projects, then you may also want to know how to raise money online. Because you're going to need to raise some money to deliver some of those projects. This is the third workshop that we've done in a series now, looking at digital development. And if you haven't attended the previous ones, a number of you have, then and you're interested in using digital tools for education, then I would definitely recommend that you look at workshop 1, which was particularly about getting communities online, but featured number of people here, but particularly we started with Howard and Wendy and the work that they've been doing in getting internet and basic renewables into schools so that they can deliver digital education where they are. They looked at using offline digital resources for education, so ways of getting lots of information available into a school network without that school being connected to the internet. We looked at supporting people with disabilities, and we did a lot of work looking at starting to use IT in rural schools and in village settings. Workshop 2 was all about collaboration, and we had Giacomo from Bees for Development, who talked us through their use of a lot of practical tools for things like picture sharing and picture library facilities, how to keep track of their partners and their projects. It looked at data collection and management, and also looked at online meetings. Now, I'll share again specific links to those particular videos. The link to the general, the Hub Cymru Africa YouTube page is there. And so if you go there, you can see a variety of videos on all sorts of interesting things. We've been taping a lot of the taping is such a 20th century word, isn't it? Sorry. We've been recording a lot of the online workshops that we've been doing over the past few years. So there's quite a treasure trove of information that's available there as well. So I would encourage you to have a look through those things if you are particularly trying to get a lot of information on using digital tools for education. But what's most interesting, I think, has been particularly getting particular case studies from partners who are working on these projects. So I'm going to go immediately to start that. We're going to start by hearing from Khosi Mofolisa, who's working for Dolen Cymru, the Wales-Lesotho link in Lesotho. And if I stop screen sharing, then Khosi, will you be able to start screen sharing and to talk us through some of the work that you've been doing in Lesotho?
Okay, yes, I will. All right, let me share. Okay, I hope you can all see my screen here. So
Brilliant.
this is Khosi Mofolisa from Lesotho. Lesotho is a mountainous country. It contains the highest mountains in Southern Africa. Hence, it is called the Kingdom in the Sky. Most of the places in Lesotho are rural, and access to good quality education, it is still a challenge. There is indeed a shortage of electricity in most areas. Children have to walk some miles to go to school every day. So teacher-child ratio is so compromised, and this really is not good. Yes, it does not give teachers a chance to effectively teach children, and the children cannot effectively learn, since there will be a lot of children in the class, while teacher, maybe a school will be having 2 teachers, while there is a total of 7 grades in that primary school. So it is really a big challenge. A lot of children struggle to read and write in Sesotho language, let alone English language. Children learn to read and write late, while some drop out before they can even start to read or write. So as a literacy officer, my duties, among others, is to mentor and support Jollyphonics teachers to assess learners and lead effective literacy teaching and learning in their schools using tools. This includes weekly Zoom meetings, the Jolly Phonics app, the Padlet, and many others. So we want to help teachers to develop the digital skills so that they can create resources for their teaching. Okay, we have been using WhatsApp for quite a long time, as is the convenient means of communication. We connect with people from different spheres of the world. As the Lesotho team, we have created WhatsApp group. We share ideas, we learn from each other. So the big group that we have created, it has more than 200 members in it, and it is so active. As you can see, the picture there is the picture of the materials made by teachers. Nothing was bought here. They used a trash. They turned the trash to a useful thing. So we encourage teachers, when they have created something new, using readily available resources, then they post it to the group or to the Padlet, so that other teachers can learn from that. So we have a tool called Padlet. This is a tool that allows teachers to collaborate online by posting text, images, links, documents, video, and voice recordings. Dolen Cymru introduced the tool to us. We didn't know anything about this thing. So we have created a shelf for individual schools, individual teachers. So each teacher posts the work in the Padlet where we can all see and learn. And it is really effective. So teachers like that so much. So our goal was to reach even fattest school in the country. We managed to do that. We normally send the Padlet link to teachers. Then in that link, it is the information or the resources made by other teachers. So we share that link via WhatsApp so that all the teachers can learn and maybe do the same or even do better than that. Okay, initially, we encouraged teachers to take the videos of their teaching in the classroom. It was a bit challenge. It was a bit challenge because they complain about the spaces in the memory in their phone, so they can't, send the video as it is. So we encourage them to create a link, because when they have created the link, it is easier for them to send to the group or to the Padlet. So the teachers have managed to do that, and they are confident. As you can see, there is a picture there. The teacher has shown his creativity here. After teaching the first group of Jolly Phonics, we encouraged the teachers, to come up with ideas on how they can teach children the words made up of only learned letter sounds. So in group 1 of Jolly Phonics, there are those words and the phrases made from those words. So let me repeat, I have taken this picture from Padlet, so sent by one of our teachers. Where we also made radio shows, Jolly Phonics radio shows. Parents, teachers, and children like the program. They always listen to the shows. However, some people couldn't listen to radios because they do not have radio. Rather, they have TVs. So we catered for them by sharing the link on Facebook so they can all watch. So we posted the shows on WhatsApp status so that people who have our contacts can view that or those links. So we have assisted teachers to use YouTube more often, as it has a lot of knowledge, as there is a lot of knowledge and resources there. The following picture, as you can see, it is of the picture of children who benefited from the radio shows, or their parents or their teachers watched the radio shows on Facebook. We have two children. The one with mask is a reception class child. She is reading the words. Her teachers told us that she watched the shows on Facebook. Then those lessons that she learned, she did the same in her classroom, and the children are enjoying so much. So here is another boy who is writing there. I was teaching that boy remotely, making videos, sharing links to the mom so mom can watch and help the child. Then they bring the feedback. So I can really say yes, in Lesotho, teachers, are using digital, in an effective way. However, we have some challenge of electricity, as I have mentioned earlier, that most of the areas do not have electricity. Teachers have to use solars, and most of the time there is no sun to charge the phones, and that really poses a challenge to teachers. So yes, thank you very much. I would welcome the questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, that was really good to find out all about that. Can I ask, does anybody have any questions for Khosi following on from that? Please put your hand up or wave. There are quite a few people now. You're looking very well behaved and quiet. Ah, Howard, thank you. Can rely on you. Howard, go on, please.
Okay. I was wondering if that is a mountainous area that this work is done. Have you thought of using wind turbines? I don't mean, these huge things that you get on round Byd-eang, but I've trialed a small wind turbine here that costs about £800, and in my a gap between my house and next door where there's wind tends to channel, and that's worked quite well to power a battery that enables a router and a switch to run a computer. It occurred to me, if it is mountainous and there is a good deal of wind, that might be a worthwhile thing to experiment with.
Interesting question. Khosi?
I'm not sure whether I got the question clear. Maybe you can help
Sorry,
me understand
what I was saying was that there is a possibility, or is there a possibility of installing a small wind system, wind power system in there, because of the the height. If it's a mountainous area,
yes,
it won't be too expensive either. I mean, obviously big turbines cost a lot of money, but small turbines are actually in some cases cheaper than solar power.
Yes, you are correct, because we are in the mountains, and there is a lot of wind there that we can generate electricity from. Yes, there are some researches been done about installing those things. So we are not sure when is when. So yeah, there are still some talks in my country about that.
Oh, good luck with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Heather.
I think the question was answered in a way, because I was going to ask, well, how do you overcome that challenge of no sun? And then, of course, she said they're in the mountains, but I think Howard suggested wind turbines or solar power or that sort of thing. I think it's almost a situation which is, well, it's beyond our control because you're in the mountains, there's no sun. So how do you overcome the challenge? But I think there were a couple of things that Howard said that are possibles. So I don't know. I don't know if, of course, you want to add anything to that.
Okay. We have advised teachers to have the power. What is it called? The charging power. So when there is sun, they charge the phone and that power bank. So so that when there is no sun, they can use the power bank to charge their phones. So Dolen has bought some few powers to teachers, to some teachers. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Khosi? I wanted to ask you, Khosi, about kind of what challenges you face in getting teachers to sign up and use Padlet. Were they very keen? Or we've also got a question from Isaac, which is quite similar, really. Just, what were the challenges of getting people to sign up and use the tools that you were wanting them to? Also then from Isaac asking what other sorts of challenges you faced in implementing that bit of project work.
Okay. Initially, teachers were so slow to act because the Padlet was new to them. They only knew about WhatsApp, and it took them time, to get used to Padlet. And when we provide them with some training on Zolophonics, share the videos to them, then they practice that in their classroom, so they get confidence. So they want to share that. This is where they started to see, okay, yeah, we can share our ideas, our videos on Padlet. So slowly but surely they are coming.
Okay. And do you have everybody doing it now, or are you up to 50% of people doing it? How successful is it altogether?
Yeah, half is doing it, half is not. I think the reason being our group keeps on growing. So we every time have new members that we have to introduce the tool to them.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you very much. If we have any final burning questions for Khosi, then we could shout them out now, or we will move on to hear from Tabitha. And I invited Tabitha particularly because I wanted to look at a kind of broader view of education, and we've had a very clear kind of look at how to do things within schools and within that formal education system. But a lot of people are also engaged in more public education and trying to reach out to lots of people to spread particular messages or engage them in discussions. We saw a lot of that happening, particularly during the COVID pandemic, when lots of organizations had to shift the work that they'd been doing for years to be doing something more particular about engaging the community with health messaging. And Niokolo Network have been doing this kind of public education thing for quite a while now, and been doing some fascinating work in producing video and animation, which has been circulated within the community. But I will stop talking about it and hand over to Tabitha, who's the co-founder and chair of Niokolo Network, who will tell us all about it. Hello, Tabitha. Fab, you're on mute, Tabitha.
I'll start that again. Thank you, Julian, and thanks. It's great to be part of the group and presenting this today, and also hearing from others about what you've been doing. It's such an interesting topic. So let me share my screen. Does that work like that? Is that full screen for people?
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So as Julian said, I'm here presenting on behalf of Niokolo Network, and there we go. And so we work in Senegal, and we work in a very specific area. So PNNK, Parc National de Niokolo Koba. This is a national park which is in the south of the country. You can see it here in the marked out in green. And we work in communities that are found all around the outsides of the park, and also along a main road that runs through the middle of this park. We work in collaboration with a Senegalese community-based organization called Kamba, and we also work with a Senegalese NGO called Kamba Productions, who are specifically focused on producing local language films. I'm presenting today just because we do have some language barriers, so none of our partner organizations speak English. And really our work is focused on providing these communications with the support that's needed for them to be able to make informed decisions to improve everyday life. And one way, so early on in our work, we were really interested in using local language film as one way of sharing information. And so we started up a local film group. We were supported by a grant, actually, from Hub Cymru Africa and from the Welsh Government, and working in partnership with an organisation called Pepperfield Productions. We started training up a group of people from the villages where we worked in how to produce local language film. And then once you've produced that film, also looking at projecting those films. So we were using a pedal-powered cinema system. So somebody in the right-hand side, you can see someone sitting on a pedal structure. So they pedal, and it provides the power that's needed for the box, the cinema system here. And then a whole community can come out to watch the film. And it's all transportable on the back of a motorbike. Not without a couple of spillages. It wasn't the safest setup. However, it was possible. So that was what a lot of our early work was doing, was thinking about issues in the local community. So we were looking at early marriage, we were looking at bushfires. But then when COVID happened, it changed a lot of things for us. So it was no longer, with the restrictions, possible for us to do larger filmings, working in groups to film these sorts of theatres. And it was also no longer possible for us to do community screenings of the films. So at this point, we also thought, there was a huge need with the COVID pandemic to share more information about public health advice. We particularly felt that Kamba Productions had a role to play in this, because a lot of the information that was put out there was in French. It was quite formal from governments and didn't really resonate with local communities. So we thought we could do some sort of in-between translating of taking those important concepts and sharing those with communities. So I wanted to give an example, and rather than doing these sort of big theatrical pieces, we were working rather one person in an office gathering film material, photographs, and putting those together into shorter film clips. So the film clips we were producing were no longer than a couple of minutes. So I thought I'd give a couple of, well, just sort of a little bit of a look at what some of the film clips that we produced. So this is one which is a rap film produced for a younger audience, saying that the virus is real and that it needs to be taken seriously.
ñamoon nga ñu daw gën ñu baam seet nga def ko yoonu tool li feebar la wala ay gént no covid bi sax dama mujj sox kenn talatu seeti kenn gise bi sax dañ ko mujj off koo fi newu daa mujjee metti ba kenn amatul envie lekk soos nañu booloo rek mën a songu xeex fokk racine bi coronavirus doy na guerre ku gëmul shit na la effacé mais mi ngi dëkkay rey te kenn dara bàyyi mu seet covid bi égal ping pong koo fi newu si whatsapp
Just cut it a little bit short, just also to give another example of a different film clip that we produced, and this was actually looking at vaccine hesitation a little bit later, and this was using some animation software, so a different type of digital tool that we found really useful.
Man ndax war naa ñàkku waaw ndax jàngoroy coronavirus bii dafay wàlle te ñi muy dal ak ñi muy rey rek ngi yokk Sénégal ñàkk bi rek moo mun a taxawal mbas mi waa ñàkku covid-19 bi moom ni muy demee ni ñàkk yëpp di demee rek waajal sa yaram tàggat ko ba nga xamante ne dina xàmmee jàngoro ji su ko defee bu coronavirus bi dugg see rek mu song ko.
So again, I'm going to cut it a little bit short because each one's a few minutes, so rather than taking up the whole time with those. But in both cases, it's putting messages, using digital tools to put messages into local languages. And then in order to share these, we actually moved slightly away from our focal region and thought, well, you know, these messages are really relevant for across Senegal. So we use social media, particularly Facebook, which is really widespread in Senegal. A large proportion of the population have got a Facebook account, and we boosted the videos. So we actually produced a series of 6 short film clips, and we were really pleased that we managed to, so a large number of people were reached. We reached just over or just under 270,000 people, but we were even more pleased by the statistics that you can see on Facebook, which showed that over 50,000 people viewed those films for over a minute, which we sort of felt was a better representation of people who were receiving that information. And we felt that this has got a real potential in terms of reaching people with messaging, and we were interested to say, okay, you know, post or not post COVID, but thinking beyond the COVID messaging, we really wanted to maintain our focus on those communities around the Parc National where we work. So what can we do to bring the lessons that we've learned from these COVID public health campaigns back to the communities that we worked with before? And so our main program previously had been universal birth registration. So birth registration is a huge issue in Senegal, and this links back to education, in that a large proportion, so often 30% of a class of children don't have their birth certificate, they never had their birth registered. They are not technically, but often allowed into school without that. But once they get to the last year of primary school, they're not able to take the national exam, which means they're not able then to complete primary school and continue on into secondary school. They have to redo the year. And if they never manage to get their birth registration, they then have to drop out. Once they get to 14, they're no longer able to redo that year again. So there's a huge number of children dropping out from school for the simple reason that they don't have a birth registration. So we have a program of work which looks at supporting communities so that everybody in that village has their birth certificate. But once everybody has it, then we're really keen to continue the raising awareness, because actually the process of registering a newborn baby is very simple, very cheap, and we want people to then be able to know how to do it. And why it's so important, so that the impact continues in those villages. You no longer get children coming up through the younger years and arriving in school without their birth registration. So we're currently working in 20 villages on the edge of the national park. And so we were able to use digital tools, so to then take the sat-nav locations and plot these onto Google Maps so that we can really illustrate where we're working. And then we used Kobo Toolbox, which is actually a tool that we learnt about through Hub Cymru Africa's digital tool resources, to collect information from people, so their name, their phone number, what kind of phone they have, and what their language is, which village they live in, put this into platforms, so both make up WhatsApp groups for different villages, and we're actually in the process of doing this at the moment, so it's not a job done at all. And also something called the Jokalante platform, which enables you to send text messages and voice messages in local languages to simple phones. So you're not just working with mobile phones. And Jokalante is actually a social enterprise that was set up by United Purpose a while ago in Senegal. And then we were interested to say, okay, can we effectively communicate and raise awareness just using digital tools? So currently we are in the middle of running a sort of a social experiment. So within our birth registration work, we're working towards universal birth registration. And then we have a group of those villages who are receiving videos, text messages just through phone networks. We have another group of villages whereby we have a maybe more traditional approach, where you've got a volunteer or you've got a community mobilizer who's going round to houses and providing information in that way. And then we have a group of villages where we're employing both of these approaches, with the view to, at the end of this year, possibly a little later, looking to see which of these is most effective. Because if you can do it with digital tools, it's a lot cheaper and more convenient. But we have a question of whether it is really effective in changing people's understanding and changing people's behaviour. And then just to touch on some of the challenges that we've experienced going through this work. So in situ skill sets, in the villages where we work, when we started training people up in film production, a lot of people had never had a camera before, had never worked on a computer before. So it was really starting from the very beginning, which means it's quite a slow process of building up a team with the skills that they need to be producing films. Issues of no internet and phone signal, or intermittent internet and phone signal, which makes it more challenging for using digital tools. So yeah, this is something that I'm not sure we've really found the answer to this. We'd more just sort of try and make a bit of flexibility and not go through anything too quickly. Looking after equipment and technology. So once you're working with computers, once you're working with phones, it gets more expensive, and they're more valuable pieces of equipment, and thinking about how these can be looked at after, when people are working in the field and working in very hot and dusty conditions. Ownership of smartphones. This is just that not everybody in the communities have smartphones. I think the numbers of people, it is increasing, but often it's younger generations and men more often do. So it's sort of thinking, how do we make sure we don't leave other members of community behind? And this is where Jokalante platform comes in. We're really interested to use this because it can also reach simple phones, and we're trying to make it so that when we've got these networks, it's we're sending information to one man and one woman from each household, with the goal of sort of seeing that information is spread throughout the household through those phone numbers. Often software is in English, and it's very hard to find French versions of it. It took a really long time to get electricity and internet connections. I think they sort of delayed our project by about 6 months, just waiting to be connected. So I think it's sometimes just those realities in the field that you don't plan for when you're writing grant applications and project plans. And then thinking also very carefully about personal data and film release forms. So thinking about, we have people's phone numbers, we have their names. If you're working in the UK, there's obviously very clear guidance and official wording of how you communicate with people about how you'll use their information. But it's not always possible to translate this directly word for word for people to understand. where people don't have so much experience of using social media, sort of saying that you're putting it on our website or putting it on Facebook, those concepts don't necessarily translate easily. So it's really trying to think about what is what is a good way to communicate this and make sure that people understand how you're using their data and that they are want to be involved in a useful and practical way without overcomplicating things. So I think that's the main messages I wanted to share. Thank you very much. And I don't know if I've left enough time. I didn't actually time how long I was talking, so I'll leave it to Julian to manage time.
Brilliant, thank you. No, you've no, that was about perfect actually. That was I think about 16 minutes of presentation, which leaves us a few minutes to come to any questions. If people have got any questions, let's have a look. I'm sure somebody will have questions. Emma, you've come off mute.
I have, yes. I had a question. You talked about data protection there, I think in relation to the films. And I wondered, well, I don't know if you were talking about both, but I wondered about the birth registration project, as you mentioned using Kobo Toolbox. Is that right for that project? And I just wondered how, in terms of data security and data protection, because obviously that's quite personal information, how you dealt with that.
So with the Kobo box is more specifically used for building up the communication network. So we don't use that for the birth registration, for supporting communities to get their birth registration. For the birth registration, we partner with the local town hall. So they have an officer of birth registration. So we are rather providing them, they have the forms that need filling in, and we are supporting community members to have those filled in, so to provide the information that they would be providing anyway as part of the official process.
Okay, yeah, great, makes sense. And I also had one other question, which was about the bicycle. I just wondered how hard is it to ride? I mean, do you have like a series of people that take it in turns, like a relay, or?
Yeah, it does have enough battery that one person can jump off and someone can get on, which is great for the longer films. Yeah. I mean, I will say that the kids can do it, so from about 7 upwards. So it's not massively difficult, but after about 15-20 minutes, you're quite keen to change over.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Have we got any more questions for Tabitha? Anything happening in while you're thinking and brewing up questions? I'd just like to ask Tabitha a little bit about the Kobo toolbox and how you found it, and is it quite easy to use, and would you recommend it for fairly non-advanced beginners who are trying to get good at this stuff?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's relatively simple. The reason we were really pleased to find it because we had been using Google Forms, but you can't use that where you don't have an internet signal. Whereas Kobo Toolbox, you can use it where you're not connected, and it then stores the information and transfers that once you're somewhere else with a connection. So that was really what we were looking for. I think in terms of actually using it, there's the two sides. So you've got the making the actual form, which takes a little bit more sort of computer know-how, I suppose. So typically I would make the form using my laptop. You then have a link that you sort of produce a link which you can send out via WhatsApp. And then a community mobilizer opens that link on their mobile phone, and it takes them straight into the first page of a survey. And then it's quite simple. So it's asking the questions, going through and tapping, and you can set up different types of questions. So people can write in the answers, or you can do multiple choice. So it can be quite quick. If you say, which village are you from, and you've got a selection, you can just tap on which one. It was really useful. We were able to actually have some people go out and do a short training so that the community mobilizers could see how the information then transferred back to the computer. Because initially we were getting a problem that people would leave some information out, so they'd sort of go halfway through, and then you'd find that sort of information was missing. And you could sort of say, but then when they saw that on the screen and saw, oh, okay, that's how it all fills in. I can see I missed that one, I missed that one, I missed that one. It sort of completed the picture, I think, and made it easier for them to see where their role of collecting the data fitted into having the entire data set. So it is, I would definitely recommend it. And would just say, yeah, it is useful to think about how you're going to demonstrate how to do it. We did find also that actually iPhones are not ideal for using it. Yeah, the other phones are easier. Yeah. Okay.
No, that's helpful, because Giacomo from Bees for Development was talking about using Kobu Toolbox and saying that they find it very, very useful. And I know some others have started and are kind of interested in it. Can I ask, is anybody else here using Kobu Toolbox? What's this from Howard? Howard's going with a laughing emoji. Jolly good. Come on, Howard, tell us.
Yes, I would like to unmute. Okay, so I did try it actually with some of our teachers. So I was trying to get a resource base of what was in each school and how it was used. And I found it very challenging, actually. Despite liking to think of myself as a techie person, I found it very challenging producing the forms. But I got very poor response from the teachers. A few of I no more than about 8 would have filled in the form, and I sent it to just about everyone I could think of. And I'm not sure why that was. So I'm actually interested, Tabitha, in how you did that. Did you have people helping people fill in the form?
Yeah, so we have a small group of community mobilizers who go around and gather the information. So it's rather than sending it out to an individual household and saying, please, can you fill that in? This is what a community mobilizer would have on their phone, and they would then use that to go to each household. I imagine that if we sent it directly to the households, this wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah. Does that mean you have a large team of people working to collect this data?
So we're in the process really of setting up what is the best structure, how to work. So currently across the 20 villages, we're working with 7 community mobilizers.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks. Yeah. I can see where I'm going wrong.
Okay, jolly good. That's glad to have achieved a little epiphany there. Maybe might help people to think about that. So, Tabitha, I think we are we're about at the end of your time. Are there any further burning questions for Tabitha before we move on? Because I know, Tabitha, you've got family duties.
I had one general question actually for the group, if there's a couple of minutes for it. So something else actually that I didn't touch on so much is so if we look at, for example, our community mobilizers, they're using data. So we want to be supporting data costs, and that's something which the grants that have been given by Hub Cymru Africa are really useful for. Have anybody found any solutions for how you so we've been thinking about, can we speak to phone companies? Is this something that they would be able to provide pro bono, because it encourages people to use mobile phones? Sort of the logic may be there, but in practice, we don't know whether that's realistic. Has anyone had any experience of getting specific support for covering data costs as an ongoing cost, not just for a specific project?
Not exactly as an ongoing cost, but what we did that you might be interested in, we had volunteers from the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, who helped us put things together in terms of collating information on what we had put into schools and how they were being used. They didn't help with the data cost, but they were very helpful with mapping the resources that we had with geographical maps. So we ended up with some really interesting ideas on where things were and how they could be moved around to improve the delivery of what we were doing. But that was, you know, we got that simply by going to the ONS and asking them for help. And I was surprised how really helpful they were. The Department of International Relations there, really helpful. We're trying to tap into bees for them now, but it's another thing.
Trying to tap into what, sorry?
Sorry?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last bit. Trying to tap into...
Oh, bees. They have started a project on the roof of one of their buildings with bees, and we've told them we have trained about 5 schools in beekeeping in order to provide another income for schools. And they were interested in that. I'm still waiting to hear back from them as to what they'll do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that, or any experience of getting cheap or getting free internet access? Oh, if only, it would be great. But I have to say I've not heard of anybody managing to do that either.
But there is actually a way of communicating data, not videos, not email even, but there is a thing called LoRa, which you can transmit numeric data over quite long distances, 35 miles per node. That is free. That doesn't cost anything. So if you wanted to collect information that was numeric and text, perhaps, you could send that rather than, and then when it reaches an internet node, LoRa will pick up what you've got and just send it onto the internet. But that bit will cost.
Okay. Fascinating. Gosh. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, I'll just have a quick look in chat. I think we're good for that. And we can say thank you very much to you, Tabitha. And we can move on to the final bits of what we're talking about. If I can find my if I can find my screen, my appropriate screen. Wonderful. Come here. We've done that. We've done that, and we've done that, which is nice. So we've kind of done, I think we've done our pre-football wrap-up. I don't think we've lost too many people to the football, although, I don't know, maybe we'll find that moment when suddenly the participation collapses. So what we'll do is just, we also haven't had a great many people put anything in the chat saying, I really want to know about how I can use this tool or this technology or deal with this. So what we can do is have a short conversation, particularly looking at the dangers, that come with some of this work, in that it's very much the case that bringing in digital tools can overcome inequalities, can help to tackle poverty, can be an incredible boost to a group or a community, but that the introduction of new technology can also be a problem, and that if you introduce a new asset to a community in which there exists a lot of inequality, then there is a strong risk that that asset will be picked up by those people who already have more than their fair share of assets, and will be making use of it. So new technology can exacerbate inequalities between countries, between communities, and between people. So I wanted to see what experiences people have and what thoughts people have, particularly about the way that the use of digital tools in education can reinforce inequalities within those communities, and to consider what you think are the risks of introducing some of those new technologies. And this is always the bit where you discover that half of your workshop is actually driving home to the pub, or driving to the pub, or from the pub. But if we've got any thoughts, anybody would like to stick the hand up, that would be delightful. Wendy, we
Yeah.
can always rely on you.
I think we've found that girls have not always had their fair crack of the whip when it came to new technology. And I think teachers need to think carefully possibly about how they group. I mean, quite often with a small number of computers, you're working with a group of, say, 4 children round a PC or a laptop. And if they're mixed groups, I think the boys tend to take over and dominate. And possibly if you had, all girl groups, then maybe still one might take over. But it seems to be, I think it's something that needs to be looked at the way that it's grouped. They seem, I think, also possibly in our situation in Zambia, pupils do not see the role models of a female teacher being in charge of the computer, for example. Right.
Okay. And so you've clearly got some ways of overcoming that through thinking about splitting groups so they don't become too dominant. Any other kind of tools that you've used to try and address that?
I think, I mean, I know Howard has probably come across it in sort of code clubs. There are more girl-friendly tasks to set, for example. There are sort of, I suppose, some ways which teachers in the UK have found to get around pretty much the same problems.
Yep. Okay.
But I think it is always something has to be thought about.
Yeah, the Learning to Learn group actually did some quite good stuff on that, didn't they?
Yes. Our recent Learning to Learn project, which was designed to make all pupils more motivated and confident and able to sort of say how they felt about things, seemed to be giving all pupils more sort of confidence to think that they could try anything. They could have a go and move forward with this. And I think it also made the teachers, many of whom by accident happened to be male teachers, aware that they needed to work on this, that they needed to be aware of who was eager to partake and who would be hanging back always,
Yep. Okay.
A lot of this is to do with classroom management as well, isn't it? Really, of your pupils.
And have you found as well, I mean, what percentage of the teachers are female?
Well, unfortunately, in rural schools, a lot of the teachers are men because they're awful places to live for a lot of teachers, and women just don't want to work there,
Yep.
So, but I mean, those teachers quite often haven't had the experience that young men would have had here. I know we went to Munyama School, which is sort of basically reachable by lake, and it had quite a big staff of young men in their 20s, possibly 30, and very few of them had any IT experience at all, which would kind of be unheard of, we wouldn't expect that necessarily,
Yeah. Okay. So Joshua, I see you've taken yourself off mute. Do you have any thoughts or anything you'd like to add or ask? Maybe not. No, I wanted to.
I think Joshua just joined actually. He might have dropped out and come back in.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you. I wondered if anybody else has got any reflections or any experience, particularly in the ways that using new tools or bringing in new assets can help to make inequality worse or to cause problems, and what they've done about that. I wondered particularly, Khosi, as a practitioner in schools in Lesotho and dealing with a lot of people, if there's anything that you've seen there that would be useful, or indeed anyone else who's still with us. No, that's fine. Don't you worry. We can continue, and I will just continue with this presentation if I can, from current slide, to look at. I mean, in considering this, then we need to look at what the evidence is saying about who it is that misses out when new technologies and new assets get brought in, and clearly the people who are missing out in the digital divide in Africa are people living in poverty, as is the case all around the world, women and girls, people with disabilities, and people from minority ethnic and linguistic groups do tend to get left out when these sorts of technologies come in and when new assets get brought into a community. So it's very important in planning activities and in planning working with schools or with any other communities to be thinking particularly about who is in that community already, what are the power dynamics that exist within it, and how can you make sure that any project work or any intervention does as little as possible to exacerbate inequalities and as much as possible to make them better. And we also need to consider, particularly in working with schools and with children, the risks of misuse of technology. Particularly, there is a risk of gender-based violence and harassment, and we've seen an increase in gender-based harassment and many women in Africa feeling that they are not safe online, and that goes for children as well. Bullying, access to pornography, and misinformation is rife as well. When you give anybody access to the internet, I'm sure we're all subject to it. And also there can be a problem with computer waste and with introducing too many old computers that have got little lifespan into a community can be problematic if they just pack in very quickly. And what we're seeing is computer waste littered across Africa and across many other areas. So I think that we are at the end of everything. So what we can do is launch the final poll. Emma, if you're on it, then that would be great. I can stop screen sharing. And we'll see as well if anybody, thank you, Howard, again, for some useful comments in the box. Is there anything else that anybody would like to ask about, would like to raise or like to discuss before we finish up and hopefully do the final polls and all go and celebrate Wales's amazing achievements in the football?
Have they won?
we're only 13 minutes in, I think, Howard.
Oh.
So I don't know, but fantastic. Emma, have we managed to launch the final poll?
Yes, it's going. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, jolly good. Yeah, for some reason I don't get to see it if you're co-hosting and have done it and everything. Then fab. So if people could fill in that poll, that would be really useful. If anybody's got any final questions or comments, then please do stick your hand up or put something in the meeting chat. I'm afraid I'm not going to give us a little song as we move on out.
I think that's everyone done the poll, so I'll end that now. Thank you, everyone.
Is that everyone? Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Well, I hope you found it helpful. Emma, if we stay on for a couple of minutes, we can have a look at the poll and anything else that we need to do. But I will say thank you very much to everybody for coming along and participating so actively and fulsomely. That's okay.
Thanks very much for organising it. It's always a good session.
So yes, exactly. I think we've sorted it. So thank you very much, everybody. And I will say good evening and goodbye.